Chag Sameach. What's up, everybody? Chag Sameach. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Oh, it's so fun to see the room fill in. Feel free to share in the chat, like, where you are and how you are. We're going to give it another couple of minutes. We have something like 119 screens registered, so I don't expect everybody to come, but
I still can't hear anything.
oh, you can't. We can hear you, though. If anybody's having any issues with Zoom, Seth Torres is our resident Roche Zoom for this Seder, so you can drop a note to Seth. Got Cleveland, Ohio represented. I wonder if we will have the 50 states. I'm doubting it, but we might have like 22. Got a lot of Colorado. You cannot hear the host. How about Rabbi Dina and Rabbi Stephen? You want to also talk so that we can see if it's just me?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear both of you. So good news for my end.
Hi, folks. Welcome. People are sharing in the chat where they're tuning in from. So if you haven't yet, also, it looks like most of you have your names, which is great. But if you're able, you go to the top little corner of your image, see the three dots, you can rename yourself with all of the people who are in your screen. And that would be really lovely. If so, top little three dots on your image. And if you could just change your name to be all the people on your screen, that'd be awesome. So we know who you are. And then the chat. Share where you're tuning in from. You can have your cameras on, you can have your cameras off. If you're in your pajamas, like that's totally okay. You can have your camera on when you're in your pajamas, because that's the whole point of zooming in for the Seder is you get to be comfortable in your own home.
Or in somebody else's home, as is the case for me.
Fair, touche.
All right, Janine, Seth is going to try and work with you to figure out. I'm wondering if maybe your volume button is turned totally down, or maybe your headphones or your computer aren't like on the right setting.
Mine is always AirPods.
Yeah. All right, I say we give it another minute or so here, but I'm actually astounded at the punctuality of these Jews here tonight. It's not something that we are known for as a people. Hence
we are also astounded at the punctuality of the starting of this meeting, actually.
Amazing. No, we've got like 2/3 of our people here. So I sort of think we should give it another 60 seconds for folks to go ahead and share like where you are, and we'll get going. All right. Hey, Seth, could we pull up the screen for the steps of the Seder? All right. So, good evening, everybody. Chag Sameach. Welcome to Mishkan's 4th online annual Seder. This is hard to believe that we've now made this an institution. so many aspects of our organization, in our lives, all of us have shifted and evolved because of the pandemic. But one evolution is now our tradition of doing an online Seder, making it possible for people across time zones and states, and culinary traditions and Jewish backgrounds and pajamas and whatever it is that's making you comfortable wherever you are in the country or in your home or wherever, to be together, for all of us to be together to celebrate Passover. If this is, I'm curious, if this is your first Seder this year, actually go pull the thing down for a minute. I thought we were going to go into Kadesh or Chatz, but we're going to do that in a second. I'm curious, put your hand in the air if this is actually your first Seder this year, just sort of missed last night and here we are for the first time. All right, got a couple. That's actually, yay. It's very nice. I'm so glad that we're doing this for that reason alone, to make sure that everybody has a way and a place to do Seder. And for those of you for whom this is night 2, and you were at a table last night eating the maror, drinking the wine or the grape juice, and telling the story, I imagine tonight will be a little different. Similar themes, maybe our own twist. Welcome to Mishkan, everybody, for whom it might be your first time doing something with our community. I will invite you to stay muted unless you are speaking, and to completely participate from your computer. So if I'm singing something, if somebody else is singing, to sing along and just have a ball. For some of you, I see that you're multiple people sitting at a table together. Don't feel weird about all participating. That's why you're here. And we're so glad about it. All right, now let's bring up that steps of the Seder. Seder means order. There are 15 steps. This is a slightly different tune than you may be familiar with. This was written by Hillel Tige. Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, magid rochza, motzi matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tzafun barech, halel nirtzah. I join me. Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, magid rochza, motzi matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tzafun barech, halel nirtzah. As we get to every piece of the Seder, we will announce what step we are at. All right, we can pull down the screen. So welcome, everybody. I also want to say welcome to the other 2 rabbis at Mishkan, Rabbi Stephen Philp and Rabbi Dina Cowens. Want to say hey? You can even unmute so that people can hear and see you.
Hi, folks.
Hi, everyone. Happy freedom.
Amen. So you have heard us share this quote many times, and it might have even made an appearance in your Haggadah. The historian Michael Walzer wrote in his book Exodus and Revolution, has a quote that I think frames the night, and it is, "We still believe, or many of us do, what the Exodus first taught. First, that wherever you live, it's probably Egypt. Second, that there is a better place, a more attractive, promised land. And third, that the way to that land is through the wilderness, and there is no way to get from here to there except by joining together and marching." And so we wanted to focus this year's Seder at Mishkan on the notion of joining together and marching. Because the holiday of Passover is a Jewish holiday, of course. It's a very Jewish holiday. Nothing more Jewish than sitting around and asking questions and singing in Hebrew and eating, and asking more questions and sitting around and talking and eating. But this is not just a Jewish story, obviously. It's the story of anyone who's ever been inspired by this story. And more to the point, even the original story wasn't only a Jewish story. The Israelites were joined by thousands and thousands of people who weren't Jewish, but also wanted to leave Egypt. And so they are referred to in the Torah as the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. You can read about them in Exodus. They're there. And it was very much a crowd of Jewish and, like you learn in improv on your first class, yes and, that you can be and do and have more than one thing. And we all are in so many ways. And so in the case of the Exodus, Jewish and Egyptian, Jewish and Midianite, Jewish and everybody who left Egypt with the Israelites hoping and praying for something different. And that mixed multitude crossed the Red Sea and traveled the wilderness. And 3 months later, we all stood at Sinai and received Torah together, all of us. And so we are the descendants of those people who received Torah at Sinai. And it was a Jewish and crowd. And, if you have converted to Judaism, you've heard us say that the tradition believes that it's not just the souls of the people who exited Egypt who stood at Sinai. It was the souls of Jewish people and people who would be in relationship with Torah and with the Jewish people for all time, which includes all of you here because you're at a Seder. And so think about how beautiful that is, right? The souls of Jewish people from BCE 1500 and 500 and CE 50 and 500 and 1000 and 2023 were there. And the souls of Jews from Ukraine to California, from Ethiopia to India to Shanghai to Ireland to Buenos Aires, all there, says the tradition. And the souls of people who weren't Jewish themselves but would be in relationships with Jews, would raise Jewish children, and the souls of Jews who were raised Christian and Catholic and Buddhist and Muslim and with no religion who would eventually convert to Judaism, also there. This Erev Rav, this mixed multitude. And there were artists and actors and builders and carpenters and designers and engineers and farmers and geologists and hairdressers. You can just hear them sort of going through the alphabet of hobbies and professions, which is to say, of course, there were Jews who had identities and commitments crossing and spanning every possible spectrum. And the people who love us and are in relationship with us. And we're all there. Everyone brought all of themselves, all those layers and identities and backgrounds and differences all end up getting rolled up into this beautiful tapestry of the global Jewish people. And that is the story that we are drawing inspiration from tonight. So here we are. So we wanted to come together around this virtual Seder table to tell the ancient story, like we do, and to celebrate in the modern ways that we all show up, that we go from me, individual person, to we. We are at 97 screens here tonight, which I think probably equals, 130, 140 people or so here to celebrate. And we invite you to bring, everything about yourself that adds up to creating the texture and the beauty and the fascination of our community and of the Jewish people. And we have asked a few people here to contribute the ways in which you are Jewish and. And I'll just say thank you to the people who RSVP'd early enough that we knew that you were coming, that we could ask you to do a thing at Seder. And next year, if you find yourself excited to, contribute in some way, RSVP early, and then we'll know you're coming, or let us know that you want to do a thing, and, we empower you. But know that the folks who we asked are folks that are in our community that we know and love, and who had something to say about what it means to be Jewish and. Okay, so let's transition now into our Seder. So I want to invite you, even as we are asked to recline, to sit up a little bit straighter just for this moment and close your eyes. I'm going to do it too. And just breathe a few times, settling into your body, the place where you're sitting, the table, the couch, the counter. And with your eyes closed, take a moment to think about all of the words that you would use to describe yourself as you show up here tonight. Anyone sitting at a Seder is here because you are either Jewish or becoming Jewish, or because you know and love Jews, or you're curious about us. But there are other parts of all of us present in the room that's going to make the Seder more interesting. And not just that, that makes the Jewish community more interesting. And we will be bringing and celebrating so much of that here tonight, going from me to we. And just appreciate, just take a moment to smile and appreciate all of those things that make you you. And open your eyes and know that we won't get to hear everybody's stuff, but we'll get to hear a little of it, and that's the tip of the iceberg. And I very much hope that for those of you who are here with us for the first time, that we get to see you again, whether it's in our morning minyan virtually or in person, and that we get to continue to share all of the things that help us go from me to we. On a note of housekeeping, if you need anything by way of Zoom, Seth Torres, who just posted about captions, you can drop Seth a note, just drop him a direct message, and he will do his darndest to help you. And if you have a question about anything going on, feel free to drop one of the rabbis who's not speaking in that moment a message. So Rabbi Stephen, Rabbi Dina, or myself. Rabbi Stephen, you want to take us into candlelighting before we do one more round of Kadesh or Chatz and turn it over to Roberta for the first cup?
Let's do that. So if you have candles, I invite you to grab your matches, or in my case, my handy lighter, and we'll light them together. And Seth, if you want to bring up the blessing, that would be great. Thank you. Light our candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel yom tov. We bless you, Creator of the universe, for connecting us in this moment, bringing holiness into our lives through the light of these holiday candles. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Let's go back to our Kadesh or Chatz page to go through the steps. Kadesh or Chatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rochza, Motzi Matzah, Maror Korech, Shulchan Orech, Tzafun Barech, Halel Nirtzah. Hi, 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 hi. Over to you, Roberta. Kadesh.
When I was little, I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, because then I would get to boss everyone else around and tell them what to do. And they would have to listen to me. It seemed like more fun and a way to keep learning, which I thought ended when I left school. It was only years later that I came to understand that being a learner can be a lifelong status and is the more fun one. So to me, being Jewish is about being a good person. And over time, I've come to appreciate the important role learning plays when trying to be a good person, or at least a better person than I was yesterday. I've also learned that being a good learner means being curious and asking good questions. Questions such as, how can I be a better colleague and supervisor to people who have really different styles of working? How can I be a better communicator, a better listener, a better ally? I think about how lucky we are to live in the world right now, but then also not. The supply of books and podcasts and Substacks and videos and classes, it far exceeds my time and capacity. It's like both great and too much. And it's especially true because my favorite way to learn is with others. I love developing ideas and coming to understandings through discussions. And doing this is so Jewish, as Rabbi Lizzie said. Judaism's a religion which is meant to be practiced in community. I mean, after all, that's why we're all here gathered to celebrate Pesach together. Maybe as a child, I internalized the structure of a Seder. You ask questions in order to start the learning. Whatever the reason, I proudly wear the identity of a learner. And so as we go to the first cup of wine, we lift up the blessing of being in a community of mutual curiosity and learning.
And if you have not already poured yourself your first cup, I invite you to pour. Thank you, Roberta. Jewish and so much more. All right, if you want, feel free to stand. I'll stand. All right, we can remove Roberta's spotlight. All right, and we go into Kiddush. Kadesh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol am, v'romamanu mikol lashon, v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava, moadim l'simcha, chagim uzmanim l'sason, et yom chag hamatzot hazeh, zman charutenu mikra kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim, v'modeh kodshecha, b'simcha u'v'sason hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. And the tradition is to do Shehechianu on the first night. But you know what? This is our first time gathering together, all together. And for some of us, it's our first night doing Seder. So I say we go into Shehechianu, the blessing for holding on to these moments, for celebrating having made it to this time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. One more time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Sing it with me. Ah, 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 amen. Over to you, Rabbi Stephen.
So as Rabbi Lizzie helped frame in the beginning by having us just sit up a little straighter and bringing attention to our embodies, like this is an embodied experience. And so the thing that we're about to do, urchatz, we're going to wash our hands. So this is your warning to either head towards a sink soon or grab, in my case, I just grabbed a bowl of water, which is also totally kosher. But we're going to wash without a blessing. Because the Seder takes showing up in our bodies, right? This whole experience is to help us retell the story of Passover, as Roberta so eloquently described, to ask questions, to say, why are we doing all of this strange stuff that we normally would not do at a meal? I have a very weird plate of objects in front of me and a pile of matzah, this like bowl of water, right? What am I doing? But first, to really actually truly experience, right, the Seder, we have to physically show up in our bodies before we can actually ask those questions and participate in the storytelling process. So I want to just take a moment, just ground yourself again. If you haven't taken a deep breath yet today, like this is your opportunity to do so. Like to just like breathe in through the nose, and like just let it out through the mouth. Like we are here, we are in our second Seder, second night of Passover. This is a time of experiencing the freedom of just being and being here, being physically present wherever you are. Passover is a physical holiday, and how we eat and how we speak and how we hold ourselves. These are all tools to bring us into the moment. This is not story time. This is the time of experiencing. So you're gonna take your hands, you're gonna dip them in the water, and we're not gonna say blessing yet. We're gonna do hand washing with a blessing later. But this is literally just about like just reminding ourselves that we're physically present in this moment. Yosef Chaim Yerushalmi draws from the words of the Haggadah and says that Passover is not a simple retelling. It is a reenactment. It is a re-experiencing of the movement from oppression to liberation, as if we ourselves walked that journey from Egypt out toward the wilderness, towards Sinai and the promised land ahead of us. And I know that each of us has our own story, however big or small, of having made a similar journey from a narrow place into a place of expansiveness. And that sometimes took actually walking, actually taking those physical steps, that embodied experience. So I want you to, this is your invitation to lean in, like literally like lean into this moment. And the first item that we are going to tackle, now that we did our orchat, we move right into karpas. Our first item that we eat to bring in this multi-sensory experience is our spring, oh, mine's bolted now, our spring greens, like a parsley or something leafy. This amazing kind of multivalent moment, right? As we smell it, as we eat it, we take it and we dip it into salt water. On one hand, right, the bitterness and the salt reminds us of that kind of bite of slavery, the salt of sweat and tears that our ancestors shed, whether our spiritual ancestors, our genetic ancestors, those who came before us. All of us have that story as part of our story. But on the other hand, right, we're in Chag HaAviv. Passover is the festival of spring. And so the salt and this leafy green also represents the possibility of renewal, of snow turning to rain, of the minerals in the dormant soil as it begins to sprout with new life, of reminding ourselves also of the possibility for growth within us. So Seth, if you can share the screen so we can say the blessing together. We take our leafy green, we take our salt water, we dip it, and we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'adamah.
Amen.
You, maker of all, whose presence is manifest in this leafy green that we're about to eat. All right, Lizzie, I think it's, no, once you finish chewing.
Just let the screen awkwardly rest on me chewing parsley. You know, something I was musing on last night as I did this is I love this taste. I love the taste of the parsley in the salt water. It's so good. Like, what vegetable doesn't taste better with salt on it? And it feels like there's something perverse about that, like enjoying the taste of springtime dipped in the tears of our ancestors. I don't know what to do with that. Feel free to write a drash, drop it in the chat while we sing the beautiful words Debbie Friedman set to music. But those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Will reap in joy. Let's bring up the words for this, Seth. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Oh, those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Hazorim bedima barina yiksoru. Hazorim bedima Soru, those who sow one last time. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Over to you, Susan and Joe, to lead us in Yachatz, the breaking of the middle matzah.
Okay, Joe, take the middle one out. We begin our story in degradation and end it in elation, says the Mishnah. The Passover story begins in slavery and oppression, and the matzah we are about to break embodies that foundational brokenness. This brokenness is not only something that happened a long time ago in a land far away. Mitzrayim is any place, person, situation, or mental state that traps us in patterns of unhealthy behavior and negative thinking, telling us we don't have what it takes to reach the promised land. But as Leonard Cohen says or said, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So y'all hold up and break the matzah in the middle of your stack and put the smaller piece in the back in the middle of the stack and place the larger piece in that napkin over there and hide it. And we're just going to set it aside out of our view here. And at the end of the Seder, we'll piece it back together, gesturing at the wholeness and healing we yearn for.
Rabbi
Lizzie, you're muted.
muted.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think now is a great photo op. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's got your matzah nearby. We should totally hold it up in the frame and take a picture of Pesach 5783 online. Oh, you're so beautiful. Wait, hang on. Let's do one more with another screen of people. Yay! One more. Chad, shtayim, shalosh.
Matzah.
Yeah, say matzah. Wait, one more. Let's see. Oh, all right. By the third page, it's all pictures of everybody's nothing. All right, you're all beautiful. All right, set it aside. Set it aside, or go hide it if there's somebody who's going to go looking for it later. All right, we move into halach ma'anya, into the magid section. So we begin here. You can actually hold up the matzah as we sing this halach ma'anya di achalu ahavtana be'ara de Mitzrayim be'ara de Mitzrayim kol dichvin yetei ve'yachol kol ditzich yetei ve'yatzach hashata Shana haba be'ara de Yisrael Hashatav de Shana haba b'nei chorin. Over to you, Julianne.
This is the bread of affliction. May all who are hungry come and eat. This year we are here. Next year in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves. Next year may we be free people. This year we are here. Next year may we be a step closer to the promised land.
Over to you, Daniel, to take us into the second cup.
Hi, I'm Daniel Epstein. I'm here with my girlfriend, Gina Alicea. And what I'd like to share is that I am a Jew and a mystic. And to quote a great teacher, Mirabai Starr, she says, a mystic is someone who is in love with the mystery. And I feel committed to the mystery. And so when I see somebody else following some other faith practice, I don't think about their dogma or their theology, but I see somebody who's trying to connect with the divine, and I try to understand their connection with the divine. Or as Thomas Merton said, to understand the mystery of God's love for them. And so what I love to say is that I can learn from all religions. And of course, I love the arguing and questioning part of Judaism. But if I'm in love with the mystery, then I also have to respect Islam. And you may know that Islam means to be submitted to God. And I have to deeply connect with and respect what Christians come to know as being loved unconditionally by God. I've spent a lot of time with indigenous people, and I've come to understand, to see God in all things, living and non-living, the ancestor who's the rock or the tree or the fish or the cow that gives of their life to sustain me. As a mystic, I learn from Buddhism to not just eliminate the suffering in myself, but the suffering I cause others. I've learned a lot from Hinduism, which appears to be polytheistic, but which is really monotheistic. And all those idols and gods are just different manifestations of the divine. And then really, even as a mystic, I learned from atheism. I remember from elementary school, maybe you do too. Do you remember the empty set is a subset of all sets? Well, for me, so atheism is the empty set, and it's part of every set. And I learned from doubt and belief. Reb Zalman said to me that doubt scrapes the barnacles off of our faith so it doesn't become superstition. And so I learned a lot from atheism. And so what I say as a mystic, that I need all those energies. So I am a Jew and a mystic.
Would you care to take us into the second blessing? We'll put it up on the screen.
Sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagefen.
Amen. L'chaim. If you haven't already poured a second glass, do it now. And bottoms up. Thank you, Daniel. All right, we bring up our screen, and we remember having been. Oh no, Avadim Hayinu. Not Manishtana. Yeah, Avadim Hayinu. I think that's what's next.
Our order is different.
No, I take it back. You're correct. You're correct, Seth. Of course you're correct. So we transition. We've already started to transition into the telling of the story. We began with halach ma'anya. This is the bread of affliction, and then raised a glass as we begin telling the tale. And then, of course, so much of the whole purpose of the Seder, as we have discussed, is doing funny, wacky things on the table so that a perceptive person will wonder about what we're doing on the table, ask a question, and then we have the opportunity to respond and tell stories. That's literally the whole logic and construction of the Seder. And so the tradition gives us 4 questions to put in the mouth of a child, sometimes the youngest person in the Seder, sometimes just cool Tina Khan, who I might happen to know knows the 4 questions and has an awesome voice. And so Shayna is going to share with us both the 4 questions and also reflections on her Jewish and. Go for it, Shayna.
Hi, my name is Shayna Freeman, like Rabbi Lizzie said. I'm a sophomore in musical theater at Chicago Academy for the Arts. Rabbi Lizzie asked me to share a few words about being Jewish and being an actor. Being Jewish can affect you as a student actor in a few different ways. Sometimes my personal connection to the culture and religion can give a unique perspective and understanding that can bring depth and authenticity to my work. Just like in the professional industry, Jewish student actors may also face stereotyping in their training and education. In the community, I have found that there are Jewish alumni or professionals in the industry who can provide mentorship, guidance, or opportunities. Ultimately, being Jewish can bring both opportunities and challenges to your education and your training as an actor. It's important to embrace your identity and use it as a tool to bring your work to a higher level, while also recognizing that you are not limited by your identity and can explore a wide range of characters and stories. Now, I'll be doing the 4 questions, which I have been leading for as long as I can remember. So I invite all the children and the children at heart to join me. Ma nishtana halayla haza mikol halaylot Shebaho halaylot anu ochlin hameitzu matzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah Shebaho halaylot anu ochlin sha'ar yirakot halayla hazeh maror halayla hazeh maror Shebaho halaylot einanu mapilin afilu pa'am echad halayla hazeh shatei ve'amim halayla hazeh shatei ve'amim Shebaho halaylot anu ochlin ben yoshvinu ben mesubim halayla hazeh kulanu mesubim halayla hazeh kulanu mesubim. Yasher koach.
Yasher koach. And the truth is about those 4 questions, they're just like a they're like an appetite wetter, you know, they're like an amuse-bouche. They're there to like get your mind beginning to think about questions as a technology for learning. And so if now having heard, why do we eat matzah on this night alone? Why do we dip twice? Why do we lean to the left? And why do we, what's the last one? I missed one.
Bitter herbs.
Bitter herbs. And why do we eat maror? Like, those are not the only questions. They're the first 4. So if you find yourself having questions throughout this Seder, drop them in the chat. You don't have to answer the questions. Nobody has to answer them. There is no definitive answer, although the tradition does say it is so that you will tell your children this story that we're about to tell. So bring up Avadim Hayinu. We start here. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin. Turn it over to Jackie.
Thanks so much, Rabbi Lizzie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to share.
So I'd love to offer a piece that emerged from the themes of Pesach, this idea of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt. So we read in the Magid portion of the Seder, the storytelling portion where we are about to be, that our ancestors were toiling in bondage in the land of Egypt, and they're finally able to leave once Moses convinces Pharaoh. And in the tiniest of nutshells, they flee oppression, move towards liberation from Mitzrayim, literally narrowness, to freedom, to expansion. And this made me think about a teaching from Rabbi Minna Bromberg, founder of Fat Torah. She describes a modern Mitzrayim of diet culture, weight stigma, and fat phobia, where there is a cultural expectation of narrowness, that bodies be literally physically narrow. And as a fat woman, I have felt this expectation of narrowness for as long as I can remember, from childhood diets that encourage disordered eating, to being catcalled in ways that draw attention to my body, to fellow passengers on planes glaring at me with open hostility, to doctors denying my symptoms of illness and instead demanding weight loss rather than caring for my actual health. When I discovered body positivity on Tumblr in 2012, shout out to Tumblr, my world opened up. I learned that bodies of all sizes are beautiful, that there was an alternative to hating my body and wishing for a different one, that weight does not determine health, that after years of trying to shrink myself, I deserve to take up space. And going a step beyond body positivity, I learned about fat liberation, the deliberate work of tearing down systems that have created a world where fat people are denied full participation in society and life. And I learned that my experiences of diet culture and weight stigma and fat phobia are enmeshed in other systems of oppression. They intersect with white supremacy and its pharaohs of racism and ableism, anti-Semitism, queer phobia and transphobia and misogyny. And hatred of fatness was spawned by a history of anti-Blackness. And we learn this from the illuminative works of Dr. Sabrina Strings and Deshaun L. Harrison. The same forces that seek to control bodies are those attempting to limit access to reproductive care, to gender-affirming healthcare, to physical safety and bodily autonomy. So this year, as we celebrate Pesach, my hope is for a renewed Yetziat Mitzrayim, a move away from oppression and the pursuit of narrowness towards a widening and opening, towards body liberation and abundance, towards fat queer love, towards a promised land of expansiveness and freedom.
Girl, thank you, Jackie. So powerful. And now you return to the table. Rabbi Stephen, take over.
Yeah, let's read what it was just so beautifully spoken about by Jackie and sung earlier by Rabbi Lizzie. So we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong, outstretched arm. If the Holy One hadn't brought our ancestors out from Egypt, then we and our children and our children's children, every generation that comes after us, whether our own or that of others, would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. And even if we were all wise, all learned, all well-versed in Torah, it would still be incumbent upon us to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt, and anyone who adds to the telling of the Exodus, perhaps through a Seder, is exceedingly praiseworthy. Are we singing a song, Rabbi Lizzie?
Now let's just go on.
Great, let's go on. Let's talk about 4 children. What are we talking about with the 4 children?
We can just read them. Go ahead.
Sure. So here we go. Keneged arba'a banim divra Torah echad chacham ve'echad rasha ve'echad tam ve'echad she'eno yodea lish'ol. Corresponding to 4 children does the Torah speak. One who is deemed wise, who knows it all. That was me as a child. The one who is deemed bad, the one who was misbehaving at the table, perhaps. I think that might have been Rabbi Lizzie. The one who's deemed I've heard stories. The one who is deemed innocent, and the one who doesn't even know how to ask. So we answer each of these children in different ways to help them understand and connect with the story of the Exodus from Egypt. But in the end, all of them participate in this retelling. And really, truly, all of us have each of these children within us. The one who knows some, the one who maybe is pushing back a little bit, thinking kind of the spicy questions, which totally drop into the chat. The one who's like, I don't know what's happening. Like, tell me more. And the one who's like, I don't even know where to begin. So for not knowing where to begin, we move into telling the Exodus story together. So I'll read some of the Hebrew here, and then Julie, you'll jump in and help us with the English. So Arami Oved Avi V'Yered Mitzrayma V'Yagar Sham Bimtei Me'at V'Hisham L'Goy Gadol Atzum V'Rav V'Yeru Otanu HaMitzrayim V'Anenenu V'Yitnu Aleinu Avodah Kasha V'Nitzak El Adonai Elohai Avotenu V'Imotenu V'Yishma Adonai Et Kolenu V'Yar Et Einenu V'Et Amalenu V'Et Lachatzenu V'Yotzienu Adonai Mimitzrayim B'Yad Chazaka V'Zro Netuya Uv'Mor'a Gadol Uv'Otot Muftim. Julie, if you can read the English for us, that'd be great.
An Aramean tried to destroy my father. He went down to Egypt and lingered there with a small group. It was there that we transformed into a great nation, massive and many. The Egyptians did evil to us. They tortured us and saddled us with punishing work. We cried out to the One, the God of our ancestors, and God heard our voices and saw our torture and our toil and the great pressure upon us. God lifted us out of Egypt, and with a mighty hand and outstretched arm, with awesome spectacle, with signs and undeniable wonders.
Thank you, Julie. I think it is over to you, Rabbi Dina.
Yes. So when I was in preschool, we learned a song about the plagues that went, one morning when Pharaoh awoke in his bed, there were frogs in his bed and frogs on his head. You can put a little love in the chat if you too grew up singing that silly song, or had fun masks with the plagues on them, or toys at the table, or things like that. For whatever reason, the plagues tend to be a part of the Seder that we really trivialize and camp up for kids. And for those of you who are at the How to Lead a Kid-Friendly Seder workshop, you know that I am completely in favor of whatever we can do to make this amusing for children. And not just that, but actually make it amusing for ourselves, and to continue the traditions that we might have started when kids were in preschool, well into the kids' 20s and 30s. And I wonder a little bit about choosing the plagues as the moment that we treat as most campy in the Seder, because the plagues are possibly the most terrifying moment in the story. They're the moment where the Israelites watched their neighbors and the country that they had lived in, actually pretty peacefully for hundreds of years, be battered and overrun with violence and destruction and suffering and eventually death. And so we remember the plagues as part of the Passover story, yes, as an interactive way to draw people into the story, but also as a chance to stretch ourselves towards radical empathy. That the Israelites were leaving Egypt for a place of their own. So they shouldn't have cared what happened to the land of Egypt, because it was imminently about to be not their place. It was imminently about to be someone else's problem. And when we do the plagues at the Seder, we drop a little bit of wine out of our cup to remind us that we should never find ourselves complacent or happy about what happens to someone else. Even the place we don't want to be, we should care about what happens there. So I think about the destruction happening in the Ukraine, a place that I have never been and likely will never go. And I feel tugs of my heartstrings over that. I look at parts of the world that I have lived in Africa, in Asia, where farmers are no longer able to farm their crops year round because of climate change. I don't have that problem. I can go to the grocery store, but I feel my heartstrings tug for the way that their country, their land is struggling. So as you lift your glass for the plagues, I want to invite you to take a moment to channel some radical empathy. to try to really feel the pain of a place that you have no relationship to. Maybe you even have a little bit of an antagonistic relationship to. And the plagues ask of us, how can we be so liberated from our own oppression that we can be open-hearted and empathetic, even to those who we might see oppressing us, even to those who we have no connection with? How can we still spill out of our own cup because of the suffering of absolutely anyone in the world? So we'll recite the plagues together. If you have a cup of wine or grape juice or anything in your cup, go ahead and lift that up. I think Rabbi Lizzie is going to be our example while I read us through the plagues, and you'll take a little drop with your finger or with a spoon out of your cup and onto your plate for each plague. And the tradition is to put an extra big one for the death of the firstborn.
And you can repeat after Rabbi Dina.
Dam.
Dam.
Svardea.
Svardea.
Kinim.
Kinim.
Arov.
Arov.
Dever.
Dever.
Shechin.
Shechin.
Barad.
Barad.
Arbe.
Arbe.
Choshech.
Choshech.
Makat bechorot.
Makat bechorot.
You want to share in the chat, who are you spilling some tears for tonight, who you might not think of as your people or your place, but you can find that radical empathy in yourself?
Yeah, take a moment to think about and write that as we go into the Dayenu. It's always such a jarring sort of shift when we go from the plagues into Dayenu, but that's why I like to sort of ease into Dayenu with a version, a Sephardic version of this tune that's a little more reflective, and then to go into the boisterous one. So to go ahead and think about what Rabbi Dina's invitation, where your empathy is extending this year as we drop out drops of wine. And I'll sing this Dayenu, which is, it would have been enough for us. Had you just taken us out of Egypt with all those signs and wonders, it would have been enough. But then you didn't stop there. And you gave us Torah, you gave us Shabbat, you gave us a path toward the land of Israel. You did a lot for us. And really, would it have been enough at any point? No, not really. If you had left us to die in the desert, wouldn't have been enough. But the ticket is to somehow see every step along the way, wherever we are in the journey, as necessary and for which we are profoundly grateful. Kama malot tovot lamakom aleinu ilu hotzianu mimitzrayim velo asavahem shifatim dayenu ilu asavahem shifatim velo asava Elohem dayenu ilu asava Elohem velo natan lanu et mamonam dayenu kama malot tovot lamakom aleinu ilu haraget bechorehem velo natan lanu et mamonam dayenu ilu natan lanu et hashabat velo karvanu livnei har Sinai dayenu ilu karvanu livnei har Sinai velo natan lanu et haTorah dayenu kama malot tovot lamakom aleinu ilu natan lanu et haTorah velo hichnisanu le'eretz Yisrael dayenu ilu hichnisanu le'eretz Yisrael velo bana lanu et beit habechira dayenu kama malot tovot lamakom aleinu, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Are we on the next slide? Can we go to the next slide? No, we'll just do the one right before. Yeah, that one. Ilu natan lanu et hashabat natan lanu et hashabat dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et haTorah natan lanu et haTorah dayenu. Last time, dayenu, 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 dayenu.
Abedina, I think. Yes?
Well, we had. I don't. Did you end up culling all those fun pictures of all the Dayenos?
Seth has the fun pictures.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, the whole idea was like a cascade of pictures during that Dayenu, but instead, let's just look at them and enjoy them. So
Yeah.
we were thinking about this whole Jewish and theme, and all of the ways that we represent. And this is just a slice, of course, a slice of jalapeno. For example, Rabbi Dina, will you narrate the jalapeno margarita? What's this a Jewish
Yes,
and?
I've got some jalapeno here as my maror also that my family has done jalapeno or spicy margaritas or just tequila shots as maror as a way of including Sephardi Jews and Latino Jews and people who would be eating spicy food to bring tears to their eyes that is not horseradish.
This is a great picture of the Woman of the Wall, which is an organization in Israel that advocates for egalitarian accessibility at the Kotel. But what I love about this Jewish and photo is that they are wearing these beautiful talitot that are made specifically by the organization, and each of the four corners has the names of the different matriarchs. So both Jewish and female, but also Jewish and always been there, always here.
Jewish and a Sox fan, lest anyone wonder if there are any. Yes, there are many. The South Side used to be full of Jewish people. Now there are less there, but they're still there. And many of them who have migrated to the North Side, including my whole nuclear family, represent their heritage as Southsiders with their Sox hat or kippah.
Speaking of kippah representation, here's a Jewish and queer. I love the rainbow kippah. I'm also wearing my rainbow kippah right now, because there's so many ways to be proud and manifest our pride, both Jewishly in queer spaces and queerly in Jewish spaces.
Love it. So one of the questions we, want to know from you is like, what's an item if you were to bring something to your Seder plate? What's a Jewish and item? You don't have to have it here, but what would you have on your Seder plate to represent a Jewish and that means something to you? All right, Rabbi Dina, take it away.
So on the Seder plate, there are a number of symbols. So as you are putting some of the symbols that you would be bringing onto your Seder plate to represent your own identities, we are also going to bring in some symbols that are traditionally on the Seder plate and lift them up. Rabban Gamliel used to say that anyone who has not explained the significance of these three things during the Seder hasn't really done a Seder: the Pesach, the Matzah, and the Maror. So if you have some sort of bone on your table, or a beet in place of a bone, you can lift it up and say, Pesach al Shumma, what's up with this lamb shank, which my dog already ate, to remind ourselves that we stayed inside while the Holy Blessed One passed over our houses, but smote the Egyptian houses. And then you can lift up your matzah and say, Matzah she'anu ochlin, what al Shumma, what is up with this matzah that we are going to eat? It's to remind ourselves that even before the dough of our ancestors had time to rise, our people recognized the urgency of the moment and were prepared to do whatever needed to be done to save lives. And finally, you can lift up whatever spicy thing you have. I've got some jalapeno here, and say Maror al Shumma, to remind ourselves that the Egyptians made our lives bitter with harsh physical labor and spiritual and emotional abuse. And if you have an orange on your Seder plate, which I do not currently have, you can say Tapuz al Shumma. What's the story with this orange? The orange began as a symbol to raise awareness for the full inclusion of LGBTQI people in Jewish community and has come to represent more expansive inclusion, drawing attention to all people on the margins who want to be fully present and empowered in our community, including women, Jews of color, non-Jewish partners, families that are a little different. The orange represents creative thinking and adapting to the times to expand our sense of who belongs. You can continue putting in the chat what else you have that symbolizes Jewish and for you. We say my very favorite line from the Seder. B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim shene'amar v'higadat levincha bayom hahu lemor ba'avur zeh asher Adonai li b'tzeitim mimitzrayim lo et avotenu bilvad ga'al hakadosh baruch hu ela af otanu ga'al imahem shene'amar ve'otanu hotzi misham lema'an hevi otanu latet lanu et eretz asher nishba la'avotenu. In every generation, every person is obligated to see themselves as if they personally left Egypt. Just as it says in the Torah, tell your child on that very day, it is for this that God brought me out of Egypt, because it wasn't our ancestors alone who were redeemed from Egypt, rather we too were redeemed with them. And you can think about if this is something that you were brought out of Egypt for. What is it? What about you is unique? What is your unique contribution to the world that makes you needing and deserving of liberation?
Okay.
Rabbi Stephen.
We're going to wash our hands for realsy this time. I'm joined by my cat who's, okay, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to do washing again, this time with our blessing. So if you have your bowl of water, or if you want to walk over to your sink, we're going to, it's also just actually not a bad idea at this point to maybe actually wash our hands, because we're about to handle some food items. We put our hands in the water, and together we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. We bless you, our God, life force of the universe, who teaches us the ways of holiness and hygiene through the instruction of washing our hands.
Amen, amen. All right, well, we take all of the matzot, the broken and the whole, we hold them together. And last night we would have done the official blessing for the mitzvah of eating the matzah. But, you know, if you didn't say that blessing yesterday, I'll lead that one too. But for now, we begin with just saying hamotzi, because this is in fact bread. It's the bread of affliction, the bread of freedom. So we'll just say hamotzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Blessed are you who brings forth bread from the earth and matzah from the oven. And then the mitzvah of eating matzah, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. Okay, eat.
We now get to the part that everyone has been looking forward to the most, except for Rabbi Lizzie.
Oh man. Born ready, everybody.
3 ducks of hot ones, everyone.
What Rabbi Dina's referring to is this sketch we did for Purim. If you haven't seen it, after this Seder, go on our YouTube station, subscribe, and go watch Hot Ones, Rabbi version, where they fed us vegan chicken nuggets and asked us increasingly challenging questions while putting hot sauce, increasingly hot sauce. And Rabbi Stephen, who is who I think had the biggest swagger coming into it, took a big bite of the most hot one and couldn't feel his hands or feet for the rest of the day. And Rabbi Dean and I were a little more moderate in our consumption of the hottest hot. But in any case, we have we've been working toward this moment. You're actually supposed to sweat. You're supposed to shed a tear when you eat the maror. It's supposed to evoke that. So go ahead and take your maror, everybody. Rabbi Dean, you want to lead us in the blessing?
Sure. All right. Something hot enough to cause you discomfort, and then we bless it. And that's the most Jewish thing we could possibly do. Suffer but bless it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Blessed are you, mystery pervading the universe, who has taught us the ways of holiness through commandments, like commanding us to eat something very bitter and uncomfortable.
Amen, amen.
Woo!
Lord.
I got the extra hot horseradish.
Oh my God.
You don't quit. You don't quit.
This is worse than that scorned woman one.
Oh God.
That was the name of a hot sauce, folks.
And now, of course, go ahead and Rabbi Stephen.
So in a moment, we can stop sharing our screen for a second here. So in a moment, we're going to be taking some of our charoset, which is a sweet mixture of often fruits and nuts, and we're going to be ruining it by layering it with some horseradish or other spicy object in a little sandwich with our matzah. But many people have the tradition of eating what is traditionally haroset from Ashkenaz, from those of like an Ashkenazi background, which is like apples and wine and nuts. Maybe some folks here are from a Sephardic background to make a haroset from dates and other fruits of that region. But as somebody who has no Jewish heritage, as somebody who converts to Judaism, I wanted to make something that was reflective of where I was from. So every year I make my Hawaiian style haroset, which this year has mangoes and coconut. I have some macadamia nuts from a friend's farm back on the Big Island where I'm from, and a lot of rum. I think I might put a little bit too much rum in this year, and some spices representing the different kinds of communities of folks who come to Hawaii. So some allspice, there's a little chili in there, a little bit of cinnamon. Which is to say, like, these traditions are to make your own, and you don't have to just do something because that's the thing that everybody else does. Really, maybe to help inspire you, either for the rest of Passover or for holidays in the future, to really bring your Jewish and your whole self into your celebration. So we're gonna take a little bit of matzah. This is like cooking with Stephen. This is our chopped. I described this as chopped yesterday. It's like, chefs, in your basket you find matzah, maror, and haroset. What are you going to make? We're going to make this sandwich here together. And this is eaten without a blessing. So, l'chaim to each and every one of you.
L'chaim.
For what it's worth, in his time, Hillel would have been eating matzah that was soft and pliable like a roti or a naan, and he would have been having roasted lamb and bitter greens and the smear of something sweet in it. So he would have been eating what we would have called a really good sandwich.
Wow.
In his defense, everyone.
In his defense, like now when we say now eat a Hillel sandwich, it's like kind of insulting to Hillel and his sandwich.
Right, like 1-star Yelp review for Hillel's sandwich now, but like in his time, it would have been good.
That's important to know. So while everybody is eating charoset and matzah, we turn it over to Barbara to take us into our third cup. Often this is done after the meal, but we're going to front load it since we know many people are going to go to the meal and maybe not come back. So we want to do as much of the Seder before the meal as we can. So over to you, Barb and Sarah, to introduce the third cup.
Hey everyone, I'm Barbara. This is my wife, Sarah. I'm honored to share a few moments with you about my Judaism and the impact it has on my identity. So thanks, rabbis, for this opportunity. For over 30 years, I've been Jew adjacent, and last year, I made my choice official. Judaism has made incongruous things make sense and has brought clarity to the juxtaposed facets of my life. Particularly helpful is the concept of tikkun olam, our commandment to help heal the world. A robust definition of the world, from macrocosm to microcosm, is crucial for me. It brings understanding and context to me in relation to we, and in relation to all of God's creation. I started my professional career in Chicago in 1990 as a young engineer, helping clean up hazardous waste from our history of poor environmental stewardship. I learned during a year working overseas, after having just buried my father, that I was good at my job, but it didn't light my fire, and I needed something different on so many levels. I drifted in a monotonous daze until I found a career as an acupuncturist, a job that allows me to work on a granular level with people. Helping others heal and see themselves more clearly is mutually beneficial. Healing the world, in my opinion, must include each of us healing the world within. Whether through hubris, malice, or ignorance, we have done and continue to do some really awful things to the planet, to each other, and to ourselves. My work has brought me face to face with some of those troubles. Tikkun olam makes my career paths, my life's choices, and my responsibilities make sense. As my life reveals itself to me, I feel the alignment and clarity of who I am in my head, in my heart, in my relation to others, and now, finally, in my relation to the divine. I feel blessed to be part of the we that is Mishkan, and for this, for all of this, I am grateful.
So beautiful. Do you want to lead us in the blessing?
Absolutely. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam borei pri hagafen.
Amen. Yasher koach. That was beautiful. Thank you. All right. Hard to believe. This is like the most efficient Seder, the most efficient, substantial Seder ever. In a moment, we are going to break for dinner for Shulchan Orech, Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid, Rochtzama, Motzi, Matzah, Maror, Korech, Shulchan Orech. We're 10 steps in. So just a few little pieces of housekeeping before you go. One of the ways that we invite people to bring, all of themselves to Mishkan is actually with small groups. We have these, whether it's Shabbat services or holidays, that obviously it's everybody and all roads lead to the Shabbat and holidays where everybody shows up. And we have spaces that are like affinity group spaces for people who are Jewish and, interested in Kabbalah, or men of retirement age, or women over 60, or 20s, 30s, or interfaith couples, or the LGBTQ Mishkan group, or people who have converted to Judaism and want to keep talking and thinking about what that means. So small groups at Mishkan are a thing, and we can drop into the chat right now, if you want to see sort of groups that have existed in the past and may exist in the future. You can learn more about our small groups here. And if you don't see something that represents you, but you wonder if there are other folks in the community who you might want to, who might be around, reach out to Maddie. Maddie is the person who manages small groups at Mishkan. Maddie, M-A-D-Y, at mishkanchicago.org. And Maddie will hook you up. So just to say, what we're getting is a little taste of, what makes people interesting. And if you want to learn more in community, that's one way to do it with us too. I want to say thank you for everyone who donated along with registering for tonight, or when you got the email about, with the information about logging on tonight. We're, 3 rabbis here, and Seth, who's also a full-time staff person creating this Seder, Zach, who sent you the email, put a lot of work into making tonight happen, and of course, Ashley and Keith, who helped make the Haggadah look beautiful, and so much goes into everything that we do, some of which is visible and a lot of which is invisible. And we were able to make tonight charge nothing, and that's really only possible because of your voluntary support. So I want to say thank you to those of you who already sent us something. And if you want to make a donation tonight or after the holiday, you'll get an email, or you can click to donate to the Passover campaign for this year. And thank you in advance for that. Okay, now moving toward dinner. If you signed up for a Mishkan dinner, we intended to sort you behind the scenes, but somehow that didn't happen exactly. So what we need you to do is raise your hand. If you want to be at a dinner, whether you signed up or didn't, put your virtual hand in the air. Take your little, hand gesture and put it in the air. And that way Seth will know how to sort you. And if you do not go to a dinner, we're going to leave this screen up. We're going to be here, and we're going to click play on the last 35 minutes of the classic DreamWorks film, The Prince of Egypt. Like the best scenes, which show the splitting of the sea. I mean, I cry. I shouldn't not cry. So even if you don't go to dinner and you stay here, you will be entertained appropriately. And we are going to be back 35 minutes after we click out. So Seth, maybe as you send like the first or the last group, or now the first group, so that they know what time, why don't you add part of the Seder? This is the part of the Seder that many folks forget is actually there, which is why we put 3 glasses of wine on the front end. But there is more to the Seder, and we are going to do the more now. And so welcome back. I'm glad you're all here. I invite you to take the piece of matzah that you hid. If you hid it, go find it. If you just put it away, grab it, because we're going to reattach the broken pieces of matzah. All right. This symbolizes the healing of the world, the tikkun olam that Barb was talking about. My matzah was a little bit broken to begin with, but we put it together, make sure that it fits. Oh, there it is. That which is broken can be mended. That which is cracked can be repaired. If it's possible to break it, it's possible to fix it as well. And so you take a little, the last taste that you're supposed to have, afikomen, I believe means dessert in Greek. And so this is like putting the bit of the matzah you just found, the big part that you hid. Now you eat it. This is like the last little bit of your dessert, the last taste in your mouth, a taste of redemption. And then we're going to bless our meal with not the full Birkat Hamazon, but Brich Rachamana, the shorter blessing for after eating a meal, kind of concluding the meal, the bookend on the meal. Brich Rachamana, Malka de Alma, Mare de Dehai pita brich rachamana Malka de alma Mahare Dehai pita. You are the source. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessing flows through me. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessing flows through me. La 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 la. We can pull that gotta down. Ya la la ya. Hi 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 la la la. Ya la 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 ya ya. Hi 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 hi. All right, your meal is concluded, but the Seder is not. Over to you, Rabbi Stephen.
Seder is not concluded. We now have our cup of wine. If you have an extra cup, maybe even a different cup or a fancy cup, I'm using a coupe for Elijah. And then also I have my cup here for Miriam, which I filled with water. And we, if you're able, we go to our front doors and we crack open the door, or maybe if you're near a window, you can crack open a window, because Elijah and Miriam at this point are spirits, so I believe they can probably reach windows as well as doors, but crack something open just to like let in the outside. It's a reminder, right, that what we're doing in the space is not meant to be contained just within the space, but also to be brought out into the world, right? We're told that we're never supposed to study or pray in a place without windows, because we should always remember that what we do for our own spiritual and intellectual development should affect the way that we interact with the world outside. What I love, we're going to sing in a moment about Elijah and Miriam, but what I love is Elijah, who's seen as this like harbinger of the messianic age, of this like kind of portent of things to come, represents in so many ways the future. And Miriam, the composer of the Song of the Sea, is in some ways a remembrance of the past, right? Learning from our past, remembering our strength, our resilience. So as we sing this song together, I would love for you to share in the chat, or with a neighbor, you can do either, where were you this time last year, and where do you hope to be this time next year? So a little bit of Miriam of the past, Elijah of the future. Where were you this time last year? Where do you hope to be this time next year? And we'll sing this song together as people share their responses. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera veyamenu, Yavo aleinu, Imoshiach ben David, Imoshiach ben David, Miriam HaNeviah, Oz vezimra beyada, Miriam tirkod itanu lehagdil zimrat olam, Miriam tirkod itanu letaken et haolam, bimhera beyamenu, hitivienu, el me ha-Yeshua, El me ha-Yeshua, Yai-da-dai, 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 yai-da-dai. I want to see more responses in the chat as we keep moving through this. Where were you? Where were you last year? Where do you hope to be in the year to come? For myself, last year I was doing this Seder in just a different location, and I moved. And so next year I hope to be doing this Seder, but in my home still, a little more settled. So, and I love the responses people are sharing in the chat. We now turn to kind of an interesting part of our time here together. So many folks skip this part, and I understand why. We're about to read this passage, Fok Hamatra, which is, pour out your anger on the other nations, on those who wronged us. I think it's there. I think it's there because our ancestors had to grapple with the gap between the world as they envisioned in the Seder, this redeemed world, the world as it should be, and the world as it is. And it's personal. Like the displacement they experienced, the anti-Semitism they faced, all of these obstacles that they had to overcome. And I think this is one of those moments, actually, this year in particular, given everything that's happening in the outside world, that maybe actually the gap between the anger or distress they felt and the anger and distress that maybe we're holding as well feels very real. It feels very real. There's so many tragedies that our community has grappled with, both near, locally, and distant as well. In this past year, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to be angry or upset about. And the Haggadah in this moment asks us to lean into that anger a little bit, to actually say, no, there is a gap between the world as we know it should be and the world as it is right now. And there is still a lot more of the Seder to come. We're going to move into praise, we're going to move into gratitude, we're going to move into these other emotions that we're asked actually to hold alongside our anger. And I think it's about kind of taking this energy we feel, about wanting to close that gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be, and then taking a deep breath and saying, before we act on that anger, to also remember that which we're grateful for, that which is worth preserving, that which is worth protecting, so that anger, instead of becoming a destructive force, can become a life force, can become a motivating force to build upon all of the blessings that we do have in the here and now, and to expand them, to grow them, to cultivate, to nurture them. This is a safe space. The Seder table is a safe, specifically Jewish space to wrestle with these things, to wrestle with how we want to change the world and how we might change the world. And in the next step, once we've eaten and drank a little more and rested, to channel all of that energy, both the anger and frustration, but also the gratitude and abundance and blessing, into action. So let's read the text here together. Shvoch hamatza el hagoyim asher lo yaducha va'al mimlalchut asher b'shimcha lo karu. Pour your wrath out upon all those who just don't get it, and upon all of the institutions and systems that are not working the way that they should. Pour your fury on them, and the fierceness of our anger should reach out to them and pursue them, and I'm going to amend this translation, not eradicate them, but to change them, to transform them, to do away with what needs to be done away with, and to build upon what needs to be built upon, so that we no longer live in any sense, with any sense of oppression or injustice in the world anymore. And to that we can say, Amen.
Amen. Amen, amen. All right. So this morning I got the pleasure of getting to daven at the place where I was first a rabbi in Los Angeles at Ikar, and they asked me if I would lead Hallel. And Hallel is the section of davening that gets added to every Jewish service, morning, in the morning, during festivals, Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, and certainly on Passover. And the cool thing about saying Hallel during Passover is that Hallel is the same all year, but most of the imagery and the storytelling in the Psalms, as you'll see, is about leaving Egypt, is about the gratitude we feel in the Exodus from Egypt. Hallel means praise. And so after the meal, after we've eaten, after we've talked, after we've thought, after we've felt, after we've engaged, and had meals that were too short, and hopefully met a few people who you look forward to meeting again, we sing. And so it's like I sang this morning, and we're back singing it this evening. And I invite you to try and keep up with the Hebrew, and if not, you can read along in the English and get a sense of the meaning of the words behind the many, many words. And all of this is just a section of Psalms that constitutes Hallel. Adonai zecharanu yivarech, yivarech et Beit Yisrael, yivarech et Beit Aharon, יברך יראי אדוני הקטנים עם הגדולים. יוסף אדוני עליכם, עליכם מאבניכם. ברוכים אתם לאדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ. השמיים שמיים לאדוני, וארץ נתן לבני אדם. לא המתים יהללויה, ולא כל יורדי דומה. ואנחנו נברך מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Let's go to the next one. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו. הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו. יאמר נא ישראל, כי לעולם חסדו. יאמרו נא בית אהרון, כי לעולם חסדו. יאמרו נא יראי אדוני, כי לעולם חסדו. הודו, הודו לאדוני כי טוב, כי לעולם חסדו. יללללי, היי היי היי, ילללי, היי היי היי, היי היי היי, היי היי היי, ילללי, היי היי היי. This is call or response. So I'll call, you respond. Don't unmute, it'll get weird, but just you can hear it at your computer. Min hametzar karati ya anani b'merchav ya. Your turn. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. Min hametzar karati ya anani b'merchav ya. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. Min hametzar karati ya anani b'merchav ya. You can also repeat after me for every one of these lines. Pitchu li sharei tzedek avovam odeya. Zeh hashar l'Adonai tzadikim yavo'u vo. צדיקים יבואו בו, עודך כי עניתני ותהי לי לישועה. אבן מסו הבונים, הייתה לראש פינה. אבן מסו הבונים, הייתה לראש פינה. מאת אדוני הייתה זאת, היא נפלאת בעינינו. מאת אדוני הייתה זאת, היא נפלאת בעינינו. זה היום עשה אדוני, נגילה ונשמחה בו, זה היום עשה אדוני, נגילה ונשמחה בו. Open the gates of righteousness for me, and I will enter them and give thanks to you. This is the gateway to God. Let all who are righteous enter through it, and all of us, let us all be righteous and therefore enter those gates. I will be grateful to you since you answered me and you have become my salvation. The stone that was rejected by the builders became the cornerstone. God created all of this, and it is wondrous in our eyes. This is the day that God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. All right, Morris, you are on deck. Last one. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, berachnuchem mibeit Adonai. Your turn. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, berachnuchem mibeit Adonai. El Adonai v'ya'er lanu, yisru chag bavotim akarnotam mizbeach. I know it's a lot of Hebrew in a fast. It comes fast and furious. Eli ata ve'odaka, Elohai aromemeka. Eli ata ve'odaka, Elohai aromemecha. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chazdo. Morris, over to you.
Hi, Lizzie asked me to say something about the fourth cup of wine. She said I could talk about why I considered Judaism important to me. And then she said a very important question, and you have 2 minutes. So in those 2 minutes, I'll try to fill it a little bit. The simple answer to that question is that it is very important, all right? And maybe a few things. First of all, the Hebrew Bible is this great compendium of human experience. Covers a whole gamut, very bad to very good. There's certainly portions there you don't want your kids reading, right? And other portions that are some of the most meaningful and spiritual writings of any time. And it is, of course, an ancient text. And it cannot be interpreted in the sense that ever since, I suppose, since the Renaissance, we've interpreted books. It is not consistent. It's not consistent theology. It's not consistent history. All right. It's not consistent philosophy. But it is this marvelous compendium. You want to know about yourself and about the human condition, it is a great thing to study. The other thing is my history. Now, I don't mean that, I was born Jewish. Doesn't mean you have to be born Jewish to understand that. But you understand the importance of history and continuity. That it is, some people may say, well, look, that's a negative sense. Well, that's just a tribalism. The fact is that nearly everyone feels they belong to some group. Nearly everyone believes that they're really the chosen people to some extent. What Judaism did, the great genius, is to take those things and then provide a means that one can use that to lead a meaningful life. And that leads into the last thing, this business. What about God? Well, look, there actually are, Jews who are very observant, who don't believe in God. Don't believe in God to practice Judaism. The rabbis in the Talmud fired God at one point, right? And God said, okay, you guys take it over now. But the important point here is that I don't think if one has even a smattering of understanding of how vast the universe is and really how little we know. 95% of the universe is dark matter, which nobody understands. To recognize that it is of value to at least recognize, be humble about what we know, and the importance of recognizing the importance of obligations outside oneself. And I can't help saying that today, the idea of this strong separation between religion and science, that's simply no longer intellectually tenable. At the highest levels of science and religion, people can talk to each other because they're speaking the same language. And the other thing, even if all those things seem very strange, of course, Judaism, as it says, what is it, 5,800? Judaism is 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Been around for a long time. And actually, rabbinic Judaism, which we just take for granted and normative, is relatively recent. It's only about 2,000 years old, a product of the result of the revolts against the Romans. And I would argue that anything that lasts that long probably has real value. People have found it of value. I don't accept the idea that the main reason the Jews survived is because of the persecution. Things survived because people wanted to survive. And part of that is one of the great insights of the rabbis. And that is, the important thing is the process and not the result. And somebody else has commented, Judaism allows and almost obligates one for a lifelong learning process. And that in itself is of great value. So in a short sense, that's why I think that it's of great importance in terms of being valuable, at least from my own experience.
Thank
And they
you.
say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen. Amen. That's the fourth cup, everybody. Go ahead and pour it for yourself and take a drink. L'chaim. Morris, you studied with Mordechai Kaplan at JTS, right? Like that's a thing that happened in your life?
Oh, no, I grew up in the mother church. I knew the whole mishpacha. My first girlfriend was Rabbi Irisstein's niece. Okay. And let me just say, she simply became a radical feminist. I don't want you to say there's a direct association, but no, that's absolutely right. I did my senior thesis in college.
With
Yeah.
Amazing.
So in any case, I grew up in that environment. Whatever. Yeah,
Love it.
West Side.
Love. Thank you. All right. Well, we have arrived at Seth. Go ahead and put that last screen up. Well, actually, hold on one second. I'll introduce the end and then we'll end. We've arrived at the conclusion. 4 cups. We've now done them. And you've heard just a little bit from a number of people in the community about like how Judaism intersects with other pieces of their identity or the way they think about the world. And it's just scratching the little most superficial of the surface, as I think you got the sense of from absolutely everyone. And that's kind of how Seder feels, I think. You begin to get into it. And by the end of the night, it just feels like, if we only had another night, another week, another year to do what we're doing now, to feel in our mouths, in our nose, with our eyes, with our ears, with our hearts, like the community around us, and also the beginning of our own sense of story about ourselves and where we want to go, like who we are and where we want our feet to take us this year. I bless us that everybody, keeps opening up to all of it. Don't let it stop tonight. In a moment, we're going to say like the last lines, the little poetic close on the Seder. But then, of course, we have, it sounds like my son is crying. All right. All right. My guess is he got hurt on the bouncy house outside. They have a bouncy house for the kids during Seder, which is brilliant because you can do that in California in the front yard. But you're 5 and you're playing with 14-year-old kids. At some point, that 5-year-old is going to cry.
No, he's 5 and 3/4.
You're right. Okay, can we bring up that screen to close? We're going to keep singing after the Seder's officially over. We got all the good songs at the end. And you'll see down at the bottom, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. We've been saying it for thousands of years, from before a time when Jews could be in Jerusalem and it was a far-off dream, to now a time when you could go to Jerusalem. And it is still a far-off dream. It's over there, honey. It is still a far-off dream because it is still not a city and a place that is fully at peace and fully realized in its sort of Platonic vision of what Jerusalem can be. And of course, Jerusalem is a metaphor for the world being at peace. So join me in saying Nirtzah, finish. Chasal Sidur Pesach kehilchato, kechol mishpato v'chukato, ka'asher zachinu lasader oto, ken nizke la'asoto. The Seder is complete according to its laws and customs. As we were privileged to participate tonight, may we be good, Adira. May we celebrate again, happy, free, and healthy. Next year in Jerusalem, L'shana haba, l'shana haba, l'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. L'shana haba, l'shana haba, l'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habenuya. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. Ay, 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 la, 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 ay, 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 la, 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 ay, 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 la, 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 ay, la, 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 ay, la, la, ay, 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 la, la, ay, 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 thank you to everybody who wrote something and shared something tonight. So meaningful, so beautiful. I hope you followed in the chat and saw all the love for you, every single one of you. Thank you. All right, Seth, let's bring up a song. Let's do it. Let's just